Welcome to the Genuine Driven Women podcast, the show where we guide women to reveal their strengths so they believe and can achieve their desired greatness. This is episode 9, and I'm Tammy along with my co-host, Adelaida.
Hi, everyone.
On today's show, we are going to talk about how to improve your executive presence. Before we get started, a few of our listeners have reached out to us and let us know that they love what we are doing. And some people have asked us how they can help us grow and succeed in our mission. The absolute best thing you can do if you think this show has meaning and if it has inspired you is go to iTunes and take a minute to write a review. I've put a link in the show notes if you want to type a review, or simply share our podcasts on your social media accounts. Anything you do like this would be very helpful and we really appreciate it.
We'd like to thank Teacher Queen for a 5-star review we received via iTunes. Great podcast with practical advice.
Ooh, 5 out of 5 stars.
Woo!
Thank you, Teacher Queen. We appreciate the time you took to write a review and we are glad you're enjoying the podcast. So with that, we will jump into today's main topic.
So, what is executive presence? According to Susan Bates, author of the book, All the Leader You Can Be, executive presence is the ability of the leader to engage, align, inspire, and move people to act.
And Sylvia Ann Hewlett, the author of Executive Presence, defines it as a measure of image. Whether you signal to others that you are star material, if you are able to crack the EP code, you'll be first in line for that next plum assignment and be given the chance to do something extraordinary with your life.
The average person may think EP is the way you dress or the ability to give a speech or presentation to a large group. It is a lot more than that, though. If all you do is dress the way you believe an executive should dress at your workplace and do not consider any other aspects, you may come off as not authentic.
You may even come off kind of awkward or kind of funny.
Yes.
Think of the little adorable girl is dressed up in her mommy's church dress, pearls and high heels.
Yeah.
This might be cute for a child, but it is not what we're going for when we try to improve our executive presence. Don't I have a picture of you, Adelaida, when you were a little girl in pearls and
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. I think I one time grabbed your pearls and put them on.
Yeah, it's so cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't want to be fake. We want to be who we
Yes.
authentically are.
Yes. EP is a lot more than outward appearances. This is why this topic is so important. Susan Bates breaks down her EP concept into 15 facets of presence and influence that are divided into 3 broad categories: character, substance, and style.
And in Sylvia Ann Hewlett's book, Executive Presence, she believes that EP can be divided into 3 main headings: gravitas, communication, and appearance.
Let's talk about some of these so you get the idea about what executive presence really is, with some concrete action steps you can take to begin improving your own EP.
Yeah, let's start with Sylvia Ann Hewlett's idea of gravitas.
Some things that make it gravitas are exuding confidence and grace under fire.
Yeah, or acting decisively and showing teeth.
Or showing integrity and speaking truth to power.
Or demonstrating emotional intelligence.
And right-sizing your reputation.
And also projecting vision. Gravitas is kind of an interesting thing to talk about. If you look across the entire internet or many different references, different books, gravitas is one of those that is frequently talked about for executive presence. And all of those things there, I think Sylvia Ann Hewlett did a great job describing what gravitas is. I think we should talk about some examples.
Can you first let us know what gravitas means for the people that maybe don't know?
A definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary says that gravitas is high seriousness. For instance, he had the gravitas of a deep thinker, or the new leader has an air of gravitas that commands respect.
Awesome. Thank you for the definition, just in case.
I just had it on the tip of my tongue.
Okay, so some examples.
Grace under fire, for instance, that is basically talking about when you are very stressed at work and are you able to keep your calm? And there are certain methods that you can learn to do that even when you're very stressed.
Right.
I do think this is one of the things I personally can work on. I do pretty good most of the time, but every now and then this is what I'm really going to be focusing on. And so another one that women have a problem with is showing teeth and acting decisively, because it's a fine line that women have between being too nice or too mean and
Right.
you have to find your spot in there. And if you read this book, Sylvia Ann Hewlett gives you good techniques on how to show your teeth, basically how to be tough when you need to be tough.
Right.
And it's very important if you're going to be a leader to figure out how to be decisive and how to show your teeth when you need to, but then also how to remain a human while you're doing that.
Right.
And it's so women have a complicated
think-
time right there.
Yeah, and I think one issue that women sometimes have whenever they might be acting decisively or showing their teeth is people might think that they're really mean, or one of the B word.
Yes, absolutely. That is exactly the problem. And where men are able to be a little harsher and everybody just thinks, well, he's serious.
Right. And women, they're like, oh, wow, I can't. She must be, on her period or something.
Yes.
They always
Yes.
say something like that in their heads, and
Yes.
yeah, it's
frustrating.
It is very frustrating.
But you have to know that, and there's a whole chapter in this book that actually goes, and I think it's called something about the tightrope, but it goes on that whole discussion about how men have a wide range of behaviors they can exude in a workplace, but women have a very fine line of behaviors that are acceptable if you want to get to a very senior role.
Yeah.
That you have to pay much more attention to what you're doing, at least until you're in the senior role.
Mm-hmm.
But up until you're officially there, there's a super fine tightrope you have to walk. And you can be, two this way or two that way. And it's complicated.
Yeah.
That's why we're going to spend a lot of time on this topic today, and then also on the Facebook page and a number of other ways, because this is a really important topic.
Yes, it is.
A few other things is right-sizing your reputation, projecting vision. That one is very important because a lot of people, when you are just working in your space, in your workplace, if you don't understand where your business is going or why, or the mission of your business and how you fit into the big picture and how others fit into the big picture all around you, that you will not be able to get to the executive roles. You have to be able to understand multiple other people and multiple other divisions or work centers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's important. And then also the overall vision that your company is heading toward.
One more we'd like to talk about is demonstrating emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior and relationships. So that's basically if you are at work and you understand that something is going to trigger you and is going to upset you, teaching yourself to recognize when the feeling is coming.
Yeah.
And then finding a way to talk your body out of becoming emotional.
Yeah. And that can be kind of difficult sometimes. I know I've had that a few times where I'm at a workplace where I'm just feeling super frustrated and I almost want to tear up because I'm so angry or, and it's hard to stop myself from getting that way.
If I can give you any happiness, Adelaida, it is that 20 years from now, that happens less than when you're young.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I wish it happened less now.
There's good things about getting old. One thing, emotional intelligence, I learned when I was in OCS. I was in officer candidate school when I was enlisted becoming an officer in the Navy. And I had a Marine Corps drill instructor who decided to start yelling at me because at the end of our inspection, my rifle was taken apart and on my rack. And he said, "Put your rifle back together." But what he didn't know is that another person who was a former Marine had taken it apart for me. I could take it apart, but putting it back together, I hadn't learned yet. And this is a long story. This is a long time ago. But I gave him a look of fear across my face.
Oh, gosh.
If I had just been like, "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant," and ran over to my rack, everything would have been fine. But he saw my micro expression of fear.
Oh, no.
And then he's like, "You know how to do that, don't you?" And I was like, and I started pretending, but it was too late. So he took the whole company out to the sand pit and started beating them. He said, 8-count bodybuilders begin. And then they were doing 8-count bodybuilders. And then he sat me down on the sidewalk and my whole class was over there doing 8-count bodybuilders in the sun in Pensacola. It was so hot. While he sat down and he's like, "Well, here, I'll show you how to put your rifle back together." And he was so nice, except for my whole class was over there being destroyed while I learned how to put my rifle back together.
How nice of him.
And yeah, so long story short, that is a pretty long story. I wanted to cry so bad, but if I had cried at that moment, it would have been over. So I found a way, and this is what I did that day. I saw my class, and I had to pay attention to him because if I didn't learn, this was going to go on forever. The only way to get my class to stop was for me to remember and be able to put my rifle back together. So I started singing in my head. This is going to be silly, but But I started singing Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly because it was so happy and peppy.
Yeah.
How could you be sad?
Yeah,
when
you
Deck
can't
the
be
Halls?
sad.
So that's a long story, but it's an example of how I taught myself not to cry.
Right.
And you know what? After that day, I have never cried again at work because I'm able, and it's sort of like that. I mean, that's like, I can feel it coming, and I've just taught myself some super peppy little songs that I put in my head that are on hot standby in case I need them. And then I rip them out whenever I'm like, okay,
Here we go.
I'm going to need that. I'm going to need my Christmas music in August, it turns out.
Yeah.
So whatever you got to do to figure out how to keep your emotions. Crying is one example, but anger would be another one, losing your temper.
Yeah.
And also just keeping, even if you are super overwhelmed or super stressed out, finding a way to appear calm on the outside for the sake of your team. This is especially if you're the leader of the team. But if you seriously have a desire to be a senior leader in your organization, you have got to find a way to keep your emotions in control. What we should do, Alida, we should probably have a separate podcast all about emotional intelligence, because that's a really good one.
Yeah,
actually.
it is. Well, after that story, here are a few ideas on how to improve your gravitas.
One thing you can do is surround yourself with people who are better than you are.
Yes.
This is like at work, or it could be even technically your friends.
Yeah, I like that quote where it's surround your, kind of how it goes. I'd rather be the worst of the best than the best of the worst. I don't know if that applies here, but
I think it does.
Yeah.
Because if you are hanging out with the best and you know that if you hang out with people who are better than you,
or you think are better
or
than you,
even if they may not be,
Yeah.
but just people that you perceive as being better than you are, they're probably going to stretch you.
Yeah, and lift you up with them.
And you're going to learn things you wouldn't have learned. You're going to do things you wouldn't have done. And
Right.
and if they're people who are not typically getting in trouble or doing those kind of things, then you're going to be in a better place just from that alone.
Yeah.
But even at work, if you're the leader and you know that you have weaknesses in certain areas, that you can make sure you hire people better than you.
Right.
Or hire people that have your deputy or your assistant can be somebody that has strengths where you have weaknesses.
Right.
So you can, it kind of applies.
Like a puzzle piece.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
A very beautiful puzzle, a team.
Another one, stick to what you know. Don't claim to know something you don't know. If you are wrong, it will cost you in the gravitas area.
Yeah. Have you ever seen when you ask somebody a question and then they answer you like they are so sure?
Yeah.
And then you are sure they're wrong?
Yep.
What do you think of them?
There's so much, I think. I'm one thing I always do with people, if I can tell, I'm like, no, you're wrong. I'm like, let's look it up. Let's look it up on Google and let's see, because it really frustrates me when people are just so quick to be like, I know that. I mean, it's cool that they think they're confident, but I'm like, I don't think that's right. We should check and make sure.
I think there's nothing wrong. Yeah, that's a pretty good tactic, as long as you do it kind of gently. Because if you call people out just directly, that's kind of harsh too, But at work, if you do it, let's say somebody 2 levels or 3 levels senior to you asks you a question and you immediately say an answer. It's amazing how smart those people are that are higher, many levels higher, that they might realize that you just said something wrong.
Yeah.
And then they'll think, she's not executive material.
Right.
So it would be better to say, well, I'll look that up for you and I will get back to you.
Yeah.
Just say something like that instead of saying something that you don't know.
Yeah.
Or saying something wrong, I should say.
Yeah, one of my friends just got an engineering position in the engineering building at our school, where he helps out teachers. He's kind of like the IT. So if a teacher needs help with a computer,
oh, that's cool.
He'll go help. And basically I asked him, I was like, oh, what if you don't know it? And he's like, oh, well, I just basically tell them, I don't know, I'm going to look it up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a perfect answer.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because it's okay. Everybody can't know everything. In this world right now, it's pretty amazing because a lot of things can be looked up. Or maybe it's just a question about a person or an issue that some of the department's having. But if you don't know, it would be better to say, I will go check. I will go talk to that person rather than say something blatantly wrong.
Right.
So that will really cost you. Another thing you can do to improve your gravitas is show humility. This is just not being an arrogant leader,
Right. Because everyone has flaws. You shouldn't act like.
Yeah, remember where you came from.
Right.
That's one thing. For instance, when I was in the military, you can tell all the officers, there's pros and cons to whether they were prior enlisted or whether they came straight out of the Naval Academy or whether they came through a ROTC program or something like that. But the one thing that a lot of enlisted people do say is the prior enlisted officers are, a lot of the enlisted people like the prior enlisted officers better in some cases because those people knew where the enlisted people had been. They had been, or they remember where they had come from, and that's very important to remember where you came from.
Right. Versus a student that just came out of college who's now an officer. So technically he's ahead of the enlisted.
Yes. And so, yeah, if you have a young ensign freshly graduated from college and they are, let's say, 22 or 23,
Yeah.
and they try to tell a 30-year master chief that they're in charge of them.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to go.
I mean, technically they're above them in the chain of command, but it doesn't work exactly like that.
Yeah.
So, the master chief should be mentoring that person. The second major area that Sylvia Ann Hewlett believes encompasses executive presence is communication. And this includes key verbal and nonverbal abilities.
So these are superior speaking skills,
The ability to command a room,
the ability to read an audience,
forcefulness and assertiveness,
a sense of humor, and the ability to banter.
and also body language. So some of these things, like when you think of executive presence, you might not think about the sense of humor and the ability to banter. That's kind of the ability to do small talk.
Right.
And that's very important because if you are standing somewhere with another senior person from another organization, if you are going to be awkward in that moment, it will not come across right. So you need to be able to just kind of have the back and forth. What, did you watch the football game this weekend? Yeah, Bob.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
You see the weather recently?
Yeah. Whatever people talk about small talk, but there are ways to improve your ability to do small talk. And so that is one thing to work on. I think a lot of people think of it, executive presence has the ability to speak or the ability to command a room. So those aren't very shocking, but there's a few of these other ones, even your body language.
Yeah, seeing that one, if you have your arms crossed, it seems like you don't want to talk to people. Or if you are maybe slouching a little bit, sometimes if you're slouching, it just makes it seem like maybe you're a little closed off. Or at least whenever I see people like that, that's how I perceive it. Yeah. But if you have shoulders back and, your arms are down or, maybe your arms are, some other way other than like crossed and, making your body seem closed, then you look more open, like you want to talk to people.
Absolutely. And even if somebody's talking to you, to not have your micro expressions, rolling your eyes or these kind of things. Try to avoid your emotional facial expressions.
And smiling though when necessary, unless there's some
important.
sadder conversation, but hopefully it's a happy conversation. If it's small talk.
I was listening to an audiobook. I don't remember which one it was right now. It'll come back to me, but that there's some people smile too much. And even if you smile, because if you smile when bad news is coming your way and you're still trying to stay upbeat and happy, then that's going to come across as fake. But overall being upbeat and optimistic and positive is important. But then as long as it's appropriate for the situation.
Here are a few ideas on how to improve your communication skills.
One is you should ditch verbal crutches. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
I know I say that sometimes. you know.
I know. I think I need to stop saying, and just because I edit this podcast out loud, we both need to quit saying,
Yeah.
So
and I say right, or I'll say other things too.
And a lot of people say like. So we'll work on that together.
Yes. Another one is to broaden your small talk.
Oh, which we actually already talked about a little bit. Over prepare. This is especially important when you are going to have to speak to an audience. A lot of people spend a lot of time figuring out what they're going to say, basically making PowerPoint slides or something like that. They spend a lot of time on what will be briefed in a conversation, but then they don't spend a lot of time practicing the actual delivery.
Right.
In fact, I think it might have been in Sylvia's book that it said people sometimes spend 95% of their time putting together the information and only 5% practicing the delivery.
Yeah.
When the delivery is technically more important.
Yeah, I took a communication class and it was just a 100, level class. And I think one of my speeches I didn't prepare very well for. I got all the information, I did all of that. But yeah, like you said, I only did 5% worth of preparing.
To deliver.
And it was not the best speech I'd given.
Because even if you're the one that puts all the information together that you're going to talk about, so you basically know what you're going to talk about. But when the moment comes and you're standing in front of the audience, if you didn't already think about what you were going to say or practice taking yourself through it, when you get nervous, it won't work.
Yeah.
It's sort of like one of those, if you train, in the military, they always say train for how you'll fight. Because if you train exactly, go through all the steps over and over and over, then when you're actually under high stress, it will just happen automatically.
Yeah. Another one is to learn to present without props or notes.
Yeah.
Notes, etc.
So a lot of people will have their PowerPoint slides printed out in front of them.
Yeah.
And you should learn to do without the notes. And if you do the over preparing and the extreme practice of delivery, then you should be able to present without props.
Yeah, and some people also use note cards. And again, you don't really, if you prepare enough, you don't really need note cards at all.
Correct.
Because you've already prepared so much, so you have it memorized, basically memorized.
And if you're an expert at whatever you're talking about, that's probably even more chance that you don't need the notes.
Yeah.
You know, an interesting one is that Sylvia recommends is do not allow challenges to your authority to go unanswered. So this is if you are the senior person in the room, and then somebody you give a suggestion, or not you give a decision about something needs to be done, or you direct a task or something like that, and then somebody directly counters you or maybe you tell somebody, okay, Bob, what I need you to do is to write this report and then whatever thing. And then maybe somebody in the room goes, no, Bob, don't do that. You should do this instead. That is not appropriate.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the person could have said something else like, well, are you sure that's what you want him to do, Tammy? Because if he does that, then really they should give the leader more information so the leader could then decide if they're going to change their decision. But by that person, by person B telling person A to just disregard the leader in the room, that is inappropriate.
Yes.
So you have to handle that. A lot of people think that with executive presence, appearance is the most important thing, and appearance does count, but it's more has a filter through which your communication skills and gravitas become more apparent. In order to look like a leader, Sylvia Ann Hewitt suggests that you should be polished and well-groomed.
Be physically attractive, slim, fit.
Yeah. Just wear simple, stylish clothes that position you for your next promotion.
So here are a few tips for improving your appearance.
It's not how good you look, it's how appropriate you look for your intended audience.
If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
This is kind of like whenever, I think we talked about this in another podcast, maybe the first one, whenever we have you at sports banquets and all your little friends had super short skirts, but I wouldn't let you wear a super short skirt. And then they're up there pulling on the backs of their skirts the whole time.
Yeah, I definitely was glad I wasn't them at that moment.
If you're pulling on your clothes, or you're checking to make sure that your skirt's down, or you're tugging on your neckline, or all these things, if it's not comfortable, you're going to look like you're not comfortable, and you're going to be fidgeting, and people will notice. So pick something else to wear.
Yeah, I notice girls like that at school where they go to class, and for me, going to class, I don't need to look nice. I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm going to learn. So I'll wear, workout clothes or jeans and a sweatshirt, or jeans and a, casual shirt. But some girls will wear crop tops and booty shorts that, actually show, their part of their booty, and I see them tugging them all the time, and I'm like, why would you wear that? It looks like you're very uncomfortable in it. So that's another example that I've noticed that girls do that at my school.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm sure they have a reason.
Yeah, they might be trying to impress someone.
Maybe they just came back from working out.
That's true. And their jean booty shorts.
Oh. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but some girls are comfortable wearing that, but it just seems like the girls that I see pulling on them seem uncomfortable because they're pulling on their shorts.
Which is a sign that they probably should be wearing something else.
Yeah.
Another tip for improving your appearance is to stay in costume, to stay in character. For instance, a lot of people at work might leave a suit jacket on the back of their door just in case somebody important comes by. But the thing is, you never know when somebody important might stop by. So you should keep your suit jacket on.
Also, don't let bangles and bling steal your show. Anything that draws attention away from your message is not giving the best you a chance to shine.
Yeah, your earrings might be shining, but everybody's going to notice your earrings, and they're going to miss you. When you are the CEO, this is the good news. You can make and change the rules. But until then, while you are still on your path trying to become the CEO, you need to understand that there are certain expectations in your workplace and figure out what those expectations are, because they're different in Silicon Valley than they are in a military place, than they are in just a regular civilian job, or maybe if you work at a construction company or something like that. There's different expectations.
Yeah.
So you just have to learn what the expectation is and then fall into that expectation. It can be difficult to manage executive presence as a woman because there truly is a tightrope that women have to walk when they are on this path, which I talked about earlier.
Sylvia gives the examples of how they can look too old or too young, too sexy or too frumpy, too self-aggrandizing or too self-depreciating, too blunt or too nice, and so on. If you would like constant reminders and new tips on how to improve your executive presence, we have some news for you.
Because so many of you are driven to succeed in this way, we have decided to share tips for improving executive presence on our Facebook page every Friday as a reminder to keep all of us focused on improving our EP a little bit every week.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Also, we recommend that you read both the books discussed in this article for more details on the concept and many, many tips on what you can do to increase your executive presence.
Successful women back in time.
Someone you think you would like to know more about is Helen Keller. She was born in 1880 with sight and hearing, but around the time she was 2, she lost both to an illness they then called brain fever. Although she had these 2 disabilities, she was able to overcome them, help others with disabilities, and was appointed counselor of international relations for the American Foundation of Overseas Blind in her later life. Helen began learning from the educator Anne Sullivan. It took some time, but she eventually was able to learn how to spell words with her fingers and also understand the objects that the words went with. After this, she went on to learn speech, which took her about 25 years, so she would be able to communicate with everyone so they would be able to understand her. In the website that is referenced below, they talk about how Helen became a well-known celebrity and lecturer by sharing her experiences with audiences and working on behalf of others living with disabilities. She spent the rest of her life trying to help others in need. And one thing that, while I was reading, is the fact that she was born in 1880. And
Yes.
I just find that so inspiring that not only was she born in this time period in, the late 19th century, but she became blind and deaf.
Yes.
And she was able to overcome this, even though, she's a woman in this age and she had these 2 disabilities. She was able to overcome that, be able to speak to people, be able to talk to them, and then help others with disabilities.
Yes. It's kind of amazing because in that period of time, even if she were a woman that was a typical woman that had all of her capabilities and ability, all of her abilities, all of her senses, then some women at that time, many women at that time, wouldn't have been able to even come close to what she accomplished. And yet she did it with the disabilities on top of it.
Yeah. And people in newspapers raved about her. They thought it was so amazing that she was able to do all this. And it wasn't, I read that she eventually came out as a socialist, part of the Socialist Party. And up until then, she got nothing but love. And once she, kind of stated her political party, that's whenever people kind of, she realized the prejudice that she got from that. People start saying, oh, well, she's blind and she's deaf and that kind of stuff. And it's like, but her being able to have these disabilities and then, and be a woman, she was given so much love, and I'd never thought that her being that way, she would get that much love back in those days. And I just think that's awesome.
Yeah. If you have read books about her or seen movies about her, I think that her very early life was very, very hard before Anne Sullivan came to her life.
Yeah.
But whereas basically, and a lot of families, they loved her, but she was very hard to deal with because nobody had a way to communicate with her and she had no way to communicate with people. And that, I just can't, what a dark world she must have lived in at that time. And then to have the moment where she understood that these letters went with this object here, and then her world is completely opened up like a flood of wonderfulness. I just can't even imagine what that was like for her.
Yeah.
But I've always been very interested in Helen Keller, and when I was young, she was one of my favorite people to read biographies about and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
She's just so very inspiring, and it's amazing. She's like a miracle.
Yeah,
so.
She's a huge role model. And I also, whenever I was younger, did a book report on her.
Yeah. The motivational quote of the week.
I always did something I was a little not ready to do. I think that's how you grow. When there's that moment of, wow, I'm not really sure I can do this, and you push through those moments, that's when you have a breakthrough. Marissa Mayer, Yahoo CEO.
I love that. It's like, get out of your comfort zone and then try it. I love this.
Yes. I sometimes run into quotes that have to do with something that I thought happened in my life, and I think that this quote touches on that for me. There have been many times in my college career where I thought I couldn't do something, but I continued on with it, and I ended up being able to complete many goals because I didn't give up. This probably applies to other listeners as well. When you feel you have hit a rough patch, keep trying, because once you've been able to get past that point, everything is better.
Yes, I completely agree. I've had plenty of those times as well. I think everybody does. If you're a human, that you have something that occurs to you that I don't think I can do that. This is going to be too hard. I should just give up. I should just quit.
Yeah.
But you have got to push past it. If you really, really want something that's on the other side of that one thing, don't let that one thing get in the way of your goals, of your dreams.
Yes.
Push past it. Find a way. Genuine driven women read lots of books. We will make sure to recommend a book each week that will inspire you or help you on your journey to success. This week's book is Executive Presence, written by Sylvia Ann Hewlett. Well, we've already discussed this book in the main topic. So if you want to buy this book, you can click through to the show notes and there you will find a link. We genuinely want to know what you're thinking. This is the section where you ask questions, let us know what's on your mind, or just say hello. Are you driven to succeed? Then email us at genuinedrivenwomen, that's women, WOMEN, at gmail.com, or call us at 724-DRIVEN, the number 2. In other words, that's 724-374-8362, and leave us a voicemail. We will use your voicemails on a future podcast. We look forward to hearing from you. The Genuine Driven Women podcast is produced every week for your inspiration, education, and enjoyment. The show notes and so much more can be found at genuinedrivenwomen.com. Please subscribe to this show via iTunes and Stitcher to receive ongoing weekly motivation to turn your dreams into goals and to reach your version of success. We'd love for you to take a couple minutes to write a review on iTunes, which will help us to reach our goal to connect with girls, young ladies, and women who need just this kind of inspiration every week. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/genuinedrivenwomen. There you can join the conversation, get to know us better, and find out about all the new things that we will be announcing in the months to come. Okay, ladies, it's time to get out there and be the best you that you can be. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.